For February 7, it is now 6 o'clock and 15 seconds. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Hello, and hello. Michelle, would you do the roll call, because I don't want to be remiss in just saying.
You can just state that.
Okay, we have a quorum for tonight's evening agenda. And I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as printed.
So move. Second.
It's been moved and properly accepted that we accept this agenda as printed. I'll start with Ken as voting.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye. All right. And we don't have any old business before us, okay? So it appears our new business is the Centennial Bridge project discussion. I can almost talk today too, okay? My nose feels like I got a clothespin on it, but it's because the weather's nice. So we have a couple guests in our gallery. Are one of them our presenter?
So I'm going to do an introduction, and then the consultant's going to do a presentation.
Okay, if you would go ahead, please.
So I just wanted to kind of give you a brief introduction to why we're having this discussion. As part of the project, because it was federally funded, it needed to go through what's called a NEPA review, National Environmental Policy Act. One part of that is effects on historic resources, also called Section 106, which is part of the National Historic Preservation Act. As part of that review, they had to create a boundary, which is the area of potential effect. The only resource within the boundary of the APE was the Abernathy Furniture Company Plant K. And then the bridge itself has been determined eligible by the SHPO during a previous survey. And again, Section 106 is completed in conjunction with the NEPA review. Here's showing a close-up of the bridge, Abernathy, up here. As part of Section 106, there's 4 parts: initiating the Section 106, identifying the historic resources, assessing if the project will have adverse effects on those historic resources, and then if there's an adverse effect, what are the implementation measures to resolve the adverse effect. As a CLG, we're given the opportunity to comment on the project or not. So part of tonight is determining if you would like to comment on the project or not. And with that, I'll pass it over to our speaker.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, thank you.
And for the record, would you share with us what your name is, please?
Yes, so I am Jennifer Schwaller, and I can spell that for you. It's SCHWALLER. And I am with, is this on? I am with HDR Engineering, so I'm part of the consultant team that's working with the Kansas Department of Transportation on this project. We recently met with the Kansas SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office, as well as the Missouri SHPO and Federal Highways. And so I'm using the same presentation that I gave to those folks a few weeks ago. We'll just give you an overview of the project. I'm assuming you know a little bit about it, but I'll go ahead and give you some background information about the project and talk a little bit about the mitigations for that adverse effect on the bridge and what we're currently working on in terms of an agreement with the State Historic Preservation Office. So as Bethany said, the project is to replace the existing Centennial Bridge that's just right outside the gate at Fort Leavenworth there, and as part of that also expand the approach on either side of the bridge. The image that you see here is just the location and its orientation relative to Fort Leavenworth and the city of Leavenworth in the downtown area. I'm sure you're all very familiar with the project. And the current bridge, the reason that it's being looked at is it serves, as you know, a very important role in the transportation network. The next closest crossing of the Missouri River is 20-plus miles in either direction. So it's a very vital connection between Kansas and Missouri across that river. The bridge is about 70 years old, so it's outlived its lifespan. These bridges are designed to last somewhere around 70 years, and it has definitely reached the end of its life. It's undergone a series of maintenance measures over the years and upgrades to keep it in service, and as it continues to age, those needs just get greater and more expensive each year. There are 2 lanes in each direction. It's a pretty narrow bridge. I'm sure you've driven on it and you've seen how narrow those lanes are. It also does not have any way for pedestrians and bicyclists to cross on that bridge, though they do it. There's not a safe way for folks to get across outside of a motor vehicle. The bridge has also been vulnerable to flood damage from erosion, debris, as things come down the river and barge collisions. So that has been a topic of discussion as well. And then just logistical challenges for Fort Leavenworth with traffic backing up on the bridge and that narrow 2-lane condition that currently exists today. As I mentioned, this is a Kansas Department of Transportation project. It does cross over into Missouri, so the Missouri Department of Transportation is also involved with this project, and it's being implemented under KDOT's IKE program. There was what we call an advanced preliminary engineering study that was completed in 2016. You may remember that from several years ago. And this was the initial look at what do we do with this bridge. And so KDOT did a tolling and revenue study. As you may know, this bridge, once upon a time, was a toll bridge, and so they kind of reevaluated if that was a feasible solution to help fund a new bridge. And then they also looked at some conceptual designs for replacing the bridge. That got set aside for a while, and a year and a half or so ago, KDOT refreshed that study in conjunction with Missouri DOT as well. As Bethany mentioned, an environmental assessment has been completed, and we've been doing a series of stakeholder engagements over the past year and a half. There was a public meeting back in August, and then prior to that, there was one in February, so maybe you had a chance to come by one of those public meetings. We've also been doing a series of stakeholder engagements. We've met with the city of Leavenworth, with the city council and the mayor's office, and with Fort Leavenworth and several other stakeholders in the area over the past year and a half or so. As Bethany mentioned, we do take a look at the impacts of replacing the bridge, and this is a pretty holistic look at various environmental resources, but the one that I want to talk about tonight is the historic sites. We did identify the Centennial Bridge as a resource that would be impacted by the project. Bethany mentioned the Abernathy building also being in that area of potential effects. That building will not be impacted by the project. And I'll go into a little bit more detail here on that in just a minute. So the only historic site that's been identified for impact is the Centennial Bridge. We also took an look at archaeological resources on both sides of the river, and through consultation with both SHPO offices, have determined there's no impact to archaeological resources. So we are down to just the bridge here. Let's see. So as part of its kind of overlaps with the 106 process as something called a Section 4F evaluation, which says that it's a Department of Transportation Act that says you can't impact historic sites unless you can prove that there was no alternative to doing so. And so we've also been working on and have completed a Section 4F evaluation. And I'm going to summarize the results of that right now. So 4F says, again, you have to show that you looked at alternatives to not impact the bridge, and you have to show whether or not those alternatives are prudent. So we looked at some total avoidance alternatives. We don't touch the bridge at all. So one of those is the no-build alternative, and then we also looked at a north corridor and a south corridor. So yellow is the north corridor, and the alternative to the south is the orange one there. And so looking at a completely different alignment across the river, due to pretty substantial environmental impacts as well as some complexities with the fort. Both of those north and south corridor alternatives were considered not prudent, not able to move those forward. We also looked at rehabilitating or widening the existing bridge, and that's the second set of alternatives that you see there. Due to various engineering constraints, and there's a little bit more detail in the 4F report if you want to read about it, but due to various engineering constraints, widening the existing bridge is not feasible. We also looked at, could we keep the existing bridge, convert that one to a two-lane eastbound or westbound bridge, and then build a second bridge to take traffic in the other direction. Again, this bridge is old, a lot of maintenance concerns associated with keeping that bridge in service. And then we heard some comments about, could we keep it and make it a pedestrian bridge? Go ahead and build another bridge for traffic, but keep the existing Centennial Bridge for pedestrians. But there again, we've got the maintenance and the safety concerns associated with that existing bridge. So ultimately, the decision, the most prudent alternative is to replace the bridge. And again, that's detailed in the 4F report, which we'd be happy to share. Cost is not, it's a factor, but it's not the factor in the decision to replace the bridge, but I wanted to provide some construction cost information. We had some comments about the replacement bridge, and could we replace it with an in-kind bridge with the arches like you see today. And as you can see there, it's a significant price difference to build another bridge like that. Over the past several months, we've been talking again with the Missouri SHPO, the Kansas SHPO. We've also talked with Mary Ann Brown at the Kansas Historical Society. Federal Highways has been involved in the conversations as well to talk about mitigations for impacts to the bridge. And so what you've got on the screen here are the proposed mitigation measures for that adverse effect to the bridge. The first one is archival documentation. This is a pretty standard, common practice when you do have an adverse effect to a historic resource. And it involves, as the name suggests, collecting all of the documentation about the bridge. So photographs, as you can see, we've got one here from the original opening that the Historical Society provided to us. It's gathering the original construction plans and the as-builts of the existing bridge. And collecting all of the historical documentation about that bridge. It's also typically includes some drone footage, so we've got some great photographs and video of the existing bridge. And this information is kept in perpetuity through the Kansas SHPO, the Missouri SHPO, as well as the Historical Society, or anybody really who would like to have that. The other thing that we've been talking about is aesthetic features on the new bridge that incorporate aspects of the existing bridge. And so I'll show you some images that we've had. We have some artist renderings of what those look like. And so all of these aesthetic concepts were presented to the public in that August meeting as well as the previous February meeting. So some of these might look familiar to you. But essentially, we're trying to incorporate features of the existing bridge into the new bridge. So as you can see in this image, kind of the bottom part of that railing, it has that kind of arch look to it that harkens back to the original bridge. The color is also similar with that blue color. As you can see here, there is a higher fencing over the railroad. That's a requirement by the railroad that we have a higher fence along there. But then as you go out onto the bridge, it's a more standard height railing along the bridge. These are a couple of other images that show some of the concepts we're thinking about. Here you can see the pedestrian component that's been added to the bridge, and again, those arches incorporated within the bridge. We've also got a concept for overlooks so that the public pedestrian cyclists can actually go out onto this bridge and stand at these overlooks and enjoy the river and the view. As you can see on those two bottom images, there are some little like a little kiosk or a signage. The vision there is to include information about the existing bridge. So memorializing the existing bridge on this new bridge with some information about the bridge that used to be there. Again, you can see the arches built into that railing. And then this is something that we've also proposed actually through working with the city of Leavenworth. They are a contributor financially to this concept, and that is a monument when you come across the bridge that welcomes you to Leavenworth and notes that it's the first city in Kansas. So just another feature to, again, kind of harken back to the history of the area. I think that's my last slide. There's one other mitigation measure that has also been proposed. The existing bridge has two plaques on it from the original construction. Those plaques will be salvaged, and the Leavenworth Historical Society has requested to have one of those. And so KDOT will salvage that and give it to the Historical Society. At this time, KDOT is planning to retain the other one. It will also be salvaged and kept in perpetuity as well. So that's the gist of it. And like Bethany said, wanted to present this to you tonight and see if you have comments or questions, or if you'd like to submit some comments or questions. I'm happy to leave my contact information, and you're welcome to do that. So I will pause there. Bethany, was there anything I left out? Okay.
Do they actually have, right now, an estimate of start time? I mean, it says 2027 cost analysis. Is that what they're looking for?
Yeah, so as currently proposed, the construction, I believe, is set to start in 2026, 2027 timeframe.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is the funding cemented? Is it in place?
KDOT does have funding for the project, yes.
KDOT and MoDOT?
MoDOT's a partner. This is a KDOT project.
Okay.
So KDOT is funding the project, yes.
I have a quick question, and maybe this was brought up somewhere else and I just missed it. So while the project's going on, what is going to be the route that people take?
Great question.
Yeah.
That is a great question. There is no intent to close the bridge. As the new bridge is constructed, so the plan is to construct a new bridge immediately to the north of the existing bridge. I should have said that earlier. And so that bridge could be constructed and then shift traffic over. There may be periods where they might have to have some temporary closures, and there's been discussion about if that were to occur, that would be like nighttime hours or things like that, not during peak travel times. But the plan is to keep the bridge open and then shift traffic and keep that movement available at all times during construction.
So that temporary bridge, is that included in the cost?
It's not a temporary bridge, so it would be the new bridge.
No, you had just mentioned that there's some talk about maybe doing a temporary bridge during the closures and moving traffic. Just recently, you just said that.
I might have misstated that. So
So there might be a temporary bridge to move traffic, or no?
no, there would
Okay.
not. So
Too expensive.
So there would be a bridge, the new bridge would be built to the north of the existing bridge. And so
Okay.
they would build that
Okay, I
bridge,
gotcha.
leave the existing in
Okay.
place, and then move traffic over once
Okay.
that's built.
I gotcha. Thank you.
And the closures would just be, they're gonna have to demolish the existing bridge, so there might be some temporary closures for safety purposes while they're taking down that bridge. It'd be very, very limited time and would not be during peak hours or anything like that. So it would be well communicated.
Sure. I know this may sound silly to some, but has anybody thought of pieces of the bridge besides the plaques? People wanting them, people selling them doing anything with salvageable parts besides just the plaques?
I
You know?
can, not, I don't think so. I can inquire about that. So typically the way that these bridges are removed is they blast them and
Yeah.
drop them into the river. It gets pretty mangled when they do that.
Yeah.
So, but, certainly I think if, I can ask the questions about what they do with that material once it comes out, or if it's recycled or what happens to it.
Yeah, sometimes when a major project is, disseminated, people want it for some reason. I don't know, their great grandparents may have, crossed over on it and they want to add it to their historical, library, so to speak. Not a major question, just kind of a,
Yeah.
thought process. That's really all I had. What a wonderful presentation. Thank you. I tend to kind of lean personally towards the one that has the arch a little bit. I did have a question on the last slide. Why the green? Is there a focus with green in Leavenworth that I'm not aware of?
No, I think that's just the coloring on the slide.
Oh, okay. I was like, where'd the green come from?
Yeah, I'll double check that, but I think it's intended to be blue like the bridge.
So I guess my question is, are they going to publish the final consideration rendition, or is that it? This slide.
What do you mean?
Well, you mentioned that it's going to be to the north of the bridge as it sits now.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is this aesthetic concept overlook, is that the final sketching piece that we'll be seeing once the former bridge is down?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty close to what you're gonna see. The design is currently at about, I think it's at about 30% design at this point. And so as the project moves forward, we'll have submittals at 60, 90, and 100% typically. And so certainly as it moves forward, there'll continue to be public engagement, stakeholder engagement on the progress of the project and the plans. And so, if there are adjustments to the plans, that would be communicated. But what we're proposing here in terms of the overlooks and the concepts, that's not going to change. Like that's what we're committing to as part of the mitigation.
Okay, secondary question. As it comes from this side going east, with your new concept of moving it over north, doesn't that put that on Fort Leavenworth land, part of the bridge? Or is that, we're gonna widen out the intersection where the stoplight basically is sitting right now? I'm just doing a hypothetical because I haven't seen the rest of those. So that means if you're coming down this way, once you put this new piece in on the north, unless you're butting up exactly on the side of it, there's gonna have to be, and my vision of it is some kind of bending of the road to that piece, to which would kind of get you back to where the previous road is sitting, or if they're maybe gonna do kind of an elbow spur off of that. It's just,
Yeah, it does. I wish I brought
If you go to Chrome,
the layout.
I have our GIS
Yeah,
up,
it's got that
It
little
actually goes in
jag.
and it
front of
has the
waterworks.
city,
right.
the
So-
blue is the city.
Right, so, thank you. So as you can see, there's a lot of constraints in this area, but hold on a second, is it okay if I go on the
Yep.
internet? I believe we have oops.
No, Richard, I do agree. It does go into the front portion of the waterworks. I was just curious
Between the
about that.
bridge and waterworks.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Goes through
it's
there.
between, it'll be between the existing roadway and the
And if it
waterworks.
clips Fort
I wanted to
Leavenworth, it's
see
only-
if I had the
There's
image.
probably an easement there that
Couple
allows
feet.
for it, I bet.
There will be some right-of-way needs, and we are working with the waterworks, on that right now. I'm looking for it right here, I think. This will give you a better picture of what it's gonna do. So for example, so here's 4th Street in Sherman, the Sherman Gate. And this is the existing intersection. As you can
Yes.
see, once you kind of get past that, it starts to come out a little bit from the existing roadway.
Yeah, that answers,
Yeah,
answers kind of my question. I mean, I thought that there would have to be a little bit of a bending slash, it's not gonna be this straight piece that it always was, but,
I thought we had the,
In 2016, Trans Systems had a complete layout of this.
yes.
At that time, MoDOT was just kind of going, this is Kansas' problem. Now MoDOT's a player because they own half the bridge, their half on their side. Is there any movement from MoDOT to expand 92? To the east?
No, MoDOT does not have plans to expand 92 at this point. We will tie in, the project will tie in near where that new roundabout is that MoDOT put in. So at this point, there's no plans to expand it beyond that. So that initial area of potential effects that Bethany showed, that's the limits of the project. And I was gonna I know I've got a picture of the layout here, so I wanted to find
So
it for you real quick.
the arch and without the arch cost, I know you're like 30% into what the final's going to be. Like, who's gonna have the final say on if that arch gets in there or that arch?
They're not planning to build an arch.
They're not?
No.
It's just, okay, I missed that part. I
Yeah,
apologize.
no, what, the exhibits that I was showing, that's what it would look like. It would,
Okay, without the arch, okay.
yes, yes.
Gosh, you teased us with
I'm
that.
sorry, I didn't mean to mislead you at all. No, the arch is not being considered. So that's why putting the elements of the existing bridge is part of the design. This image maybe shows a little bit better, the layout. So it's gonna be really tight to the existing bridge. So you can see the existing bridges here. And that new, alignment and bridge would be just to the north. And so we are, like I said, we are talking with the Waterworks right now about the right-of-way that's needed through there. And then on the other side, this is federal property on the other side, and so also having some discussions with those folks about the right-of-way needs on that side too. And then we, tie in right around here.
roundabout.
There's a gas easement, Southern Star, that goes through here, and so some of the things you see up here is making sure we're retaining their access to that right-of-way that they have for this major gas line that goes right through here. We will not be impacting it.
Or we'll be evacuating.
Yeah, it's far enough off the alignment, we're not gonna impact it or worry about it.
What impact will it have on that little campground rest area down there?
Great question. So we've also been coordinating with your Parks Department about that. There will be some closures of that park during the bridge construction for safety purposes. I think still TBD on exactly what that means for the campground, but we do anticipate there will be a closure period for that campground. So, yeah, we've had several meetings with your Parks Department about it.
Ken, any inquiries on your end?
I have no questions.
Okay, great. Well, Bethany's got my information, so happy to answer any other questions you have. newcentennialbridge.gov is the website, so all of these materials are also there. And yeah, happy to answer any other questions you might have later, so.
Thank you.
So your end state that you're requiring from us this evening is, the question would be is, are we in support of the concept of the presentation, or?
Do we want, as the CLG, do you want, as the board, do you want to comment formally on the project? Or is the information sufficient and no comments?
Okay. So I would entertain a motion to either comment or that the information that we have been provided is sufficient.
I'd like to make a motion that the presentation that's been given to the Historic Preservation Board tonight is sufficient.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded that the information provided for us this evening is sufficient. I'll start with the vote on your end, Sherry.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yay.
Yay.
Okay,
So
well,
it's-
thank you.
Well, no, thank you.
And just next steps, we will continue to work with the SHPO. The mitigation measures that I mentioned will be formalized in a memorandum of agreement with the State Historic Preservation Office. So that's our next
step.
steps.
On the website, like daily, weekly, how's that?
Say that again?
Like on the new centennialbridge.gov, how often is that updated with
Oh,
information?
as we have pertinent information available at key milestones, we'll update that information. Yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you for having me.
So I have one person in the gallery, and I was going to add, did you have any comment you wanted to make, sir?
Yes. It would be nice to me before you did your motion.
Okay, that's my error.
Doesn't count. I've only been,
Please step to the podium and state your name and address.
I'll be Louis Clinton. I've been here since 1876. That's Gross Papa, so I am a historian of Leavenworth. I live at 1816 Pine Ridge Drive, and my phone number is 913-683-0501, in case we start getting bad people in here from across the border. I heard MoDOT used twice. The original price tag was what, 350 or 250 million? You don't know. I mean, that's a pretty serious subject because they gave it. Is there a commission and a board going to be keeping track of repairs, and are there going to be people involved that we, the taxpayers, have to pay money to support? See, I worked on the toll bridge back in 1956. My job was to take a toll, 25 cents, or a truck was different, and the businesses were very good businesses. They were Jewish gentlemen, mainly, and they would give the person buying something 2 tickets. They were 15 cents each. One was to get back to Weston or Camden Point or Platte City, and the other was to come back. Very good. I don't know if any other communities in the country do that. I heard something about painting. Once you paint it, then you're going to have to paint it again. So is MoDOT a participant? Is that what you're saying? They're going to give 250 million and we're going to give 250 million?
This isn't pertinent to this board.
Say again?
That's not a pertinent discussion to this board.
Well, what they're okaying is important.
Well, our piece, Mr. Klemp, is from the historical presentation perspective of it. We all know that it is a historical bridge. It is going to continue to be a historical bridge. But the determination on whether or not, whatever the financial applications of it are outside of the parameters of what we are able to present in a yay or a nay. For this was an informational piece to us to inform us that our state historical preservation organization is participating in that to make sure that our local preservation board was informed and attuned to what the project is going to entail. Now, the city commissioner would would probably be the area to have your inquiries better addressed, because that's the budgeting and financing for us in our area as opposed to us. We don't have any resourcing of funds. My comprehension is this has been a total informational piece. So I'm not disputing your input. I'm just indicating that this isn't the accurate forum for it. That's on Tuesday night, is that correct, Sherry?
Yes.
The next meeting is Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I would ask that you consider coming before them, making sure that you sign in before they start the meeting so that they give you a few minutes to recognize the fact that you have some input and some questions, sir.
Well, I only had about 3 more items that would have been good for your minds. How'd you enjoy when you crossed the bridge where there was a one-lane wood. Did you enjoy that? Oh, you never did that.
No, I have done that a
We're
lot.
dealing with the present, though.
I know that.
Not the past.
You're dealing with the present.
But because I'm
When
really
you deal with
old,
the present, though, I dealt with the present dealing with MoDOT. Their plan is not for 15 to 20 years to 4-lane 92 or 45.
but
15 to
both,
20 years.
but both of those avenues of exit and entrance to Kansas are MoDOT's property. So in Kansas, we have no input into what they're going to do with their own physical state highway properties at all. They would probably do a consideration with us and an informational piece so that they can tie into what we're doing, but we'll have no impact on whether they, the fact that we have the roundabout has astounded most of us in the first place, but we can see now to where they're at least looking in a progressive sense to consider that they've got to make some improvements in that area. So again, I would just recommend that you come before the city commission and present the
many
rest of the
times-
questions, if you don't mind.
You know how many times I've been for the city commission, the county commission?
No, I'm just asking you
Undoubtedly, I
to
will.
do it just,
But let her answer the question. Can she answer the question?
she can try to give you some input, but she isn't the final determinant on what is or isn't gonna happen. That's why we appreciated the fact that she was here tonight.
I think we need to keep it to the purview of this board, though.
But if she's giving you bad information and you don't remember the question, you went to look it up.
The cost?
The question was, is MoDOT a participant in giving money for the bridge?
No, KDOT project.
Say again?
It is a KDOT project.
It's KDOT, see?
It's a KDOT project, yes, sir.
So that's why it's nice to be informed. Everybody needs to be informed because I keep telling the city, we need a toll on that bridge. The warden just retired, and it doesn't mean anything to you. He's making $161,000 a year and he lives in Kansas City, Missouri. $161,000.
But
I was a
again, that
Navy
doesn't
lieutenant
come,
and got out. I made $10,000 in 1966. A Navy lieutenant today makes $114,000. He can't afford a toll. It's just information that you need to know about everything that goes on in Leavenworth, Kansas.
yes, sir, and that's what we're trying to do. So
Very wise.
I appreciate your input, and thank you for your service.
Well, you don't have to thank me for my service, because then I went with TWA, so that was real good.
You're wearing a
Yeah, good day.
veteran's cap. I'm one of those also.
Always listen, try to pass on good information to the lady from Missouri, I guess that's where she.
So if there's anything else to come before us for this evening?
And we do not have a meeting next month.
In March.
No agenda items.
And outside of my usual well-mannered presentation, I'd like to thank the two of you. I'd like to thank our guest for a really excellent presentation. Normally, we could come up with like lots and lots and lots of questions. So you helped us quite a lot, and I appreciate the time and travel. So if there's nothing else to come before us, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make that motion to adjourn?
I knew you were gonna do it. I second it.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we adjourn.